Right. So as we were saying, we can nest queries inside of other queries. Meaning, you can write a select statement, and that select statement can be part of another select statement. Right? You can put a select statement inside of a where clause. That's the most common place to put it. You can also put it in the from clause, or you can put it in the select clause. So let's take a look at a couple of these. So for instance, one place to put it is in the where clause, right? So here in the where clause, we're saying slide yada 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 from some field from a table. We know that, right? Where the field, and now the field can be the in clause, right? You can make that field either participate in a Boolean expression, right? We can say that field is equal to, and then the right side of that Boolean expression could be something calculated. It could be a function that calculates something, that adds something up, or whatnot. Or it could be a select statement where it goes back to the database, retrieves and does some records, looks for those records, and the result of that record can then be used as a comparison on the right-hand side of the Boolean expression. Right? In this particular case, this select statement, since we're using it in an in clause, right, our understanding would be that the right-hand side of that in clause is some collection of things, some array, right, or some list of a certain list. So that select statement would make sense to only have in the here, right, in the select clause, to have only one field, right, so that the result of this could be many values for that field that match this criteria, right? It would make no sense to have more than one field here, right? Because it makes no sense to compare a single valued field against many values. Right? So this one's going to iterate over all the values of field 2 that match this criteria, right? And the one that matches is the one that is returned in the select statement. Okay. So, for instance, if you have this query where we're checking, give me the students whose first name are either Alice, Bob, and Charlie. This returns all the records. If you have 100 students, it'll come back only with the ones whose first names are these 3. Right? But hard coding it like this, you might need to change it from time to time. Maybe Alice already graduated. Alice not around. It doesn't match your criteria. You want that to be maybe dynamic, right? Instead of having that hard coded. So you could instead calculate that list of folks by matching some criteria. Give me all the students who are whose subject is science, and then it comes back with Alice, Bob, Fred, and Charlie. Right? So now this first name in, right, the right-hand side is dynamic, as it changes over time. So here's a couple examples. We have a couple of a table that has certain countries with populations and area and GDP. And for instance, you might query. It says, well, give me all the names of those countries whose population is larger than Russia. Right? So instead of hard coding the value of the population of Russia, this might change over time. Right? It might be somebody else's responsibility to update this, right? So instead of hard coding it, right, I can go fetch it. I said, select population, right, from GDP where name is Russia. And as it comes back, now I can use it in this Boolean expression and compare it against something that is not hard-coded, right? Something that is calculated on the fly. Again, the left-hand side is expected to be compared against one value. So the right-hand side, also, you have to guarantee that it evaluates to a single value, right? In the in clause, you can have multiple values, right? Might make sense, but here only one value. You can also, instead of putting the where clause in, the select statement on the where clause, you can also put a select statement in the from clause. Okay. Whereas in the where clause, it's used to compare. It's used to build Boolean expressions, right? Looking for records that match your criteria, your Boolean expression criteria. In the from clause, instead, the select statement is used for building on the fly tables, virtual tables, right? If you remember, the from clause allows you to list all the data sources, right? From where are you getting the records from? In here, we're saying get the records that are in the table suppliers. That's one of the tables. And I'm going to build a table on the fly, right, which is going to contain certain columns, so certain records. And what are the columns? Well, here they are. The columns will be supplier ID, comma, right, and then this other column called total amount. Right, so those two columns, fetching it from some orders table, and I'm grouping it and doing all this thing. So the resulting records, which records? I guess all of them. They're being all grouped by, and I'm naming this virtual table. I'm calling it subquery 1. Okay, so there's these two tables, suppliers and subquery. Those are my two tables. One of them is a fixed table, right, that is actually stored in the database, right? Instead, this one is on the fly. It's calculating all the records that meet this criteria, and it's calling that as table subquery 1. Once I have that, I can treat suppliers and subquery 1 as if they were actual table. Well, one of them is an actual table, right? The other one is not. The other one is being calculated on the fly. We'll see in a minute that a better solution to this, if we realize that this virtual table is actually very useful, we might actually create a view, right, that encapsulates this select statement, give it a name, right, and then use that view instead, right, and actually the assignment asks you to do that. So once we name it as a table, we can then use it in the where clause. We can use it in the select statement, right, as if it were an actual table. Notice that we're using the where clause, subquery 1, yada yada yada, where they're equal, right? We're extracting the total amount, okay, which is pretty cool. Right, so you can use it again in the where clause, and you can use it in the from clause. You can also use it in the select clause. So we saw that it can be used in the where, in the from. It can also be used in the select statement, right? So for instance, here we have a select. Remember that in the select, we're establishing what? We're establishing the columns that we want, right? Out of all the tables are going to have 10 tables from this. 10 columns from this table and 20 columns from that other table, right? And if you just ask for all of them, well, it'll be the combination of all the columns. Maybe you don't want all the columns. So here I'm saying that I only want from the tables, from the TBLS. I'm grabbing the owner and the table name, right? But then I'm also adding an on-the-fly column called subquery 2. Right? So that's a brand new column which is going to contain, right, the count on how many total columns are there out there, right? So the values are going to come out of there. So the from allows you to do on-the-fly tables, create virtual tables, whereas the select statement allows you to create on-the-fly virtual columns. Where you can calculate things, right? Yeah, so those are the three uses of subqueries. Let's take a look at unions.